to school breakfast gets made your way. Whether we are powering it up with protein with some delicious pancakes, or we are taking a muffin and making it low carb, we have got you covered for all of your back to school needs. Pancakes are the perfect way to start your day when you're headed back to school, especially when we are putting in this powerful protein ingredient, cottage cheese. Now, I'll be honest with you, I try cottage cheese and on its own, it's not my favorite food, as good and nutrition as it is, but blended into pancakes, it is the perfect way to up the protein factor. And these are such an easy way to make pancakes because we're gonna blend it all in this cup. So we're gonna start with a half a cup of quick cooked oats. Now what I like about this recipe is that because we're blending everything together, this half a cup of oats can really be whatever you want. So if you wanna use gluten-free oats, if you wanna use a gluten-free cereal, if you want to use a half a cup of almond flour, you can really mix and match, and protein pancakes are a great way to do that because unlike baking something like a cake, it's very forgiving. So we love that. Oh, that's my third of a cup, not my half a cup. All right, half of a cup going in. And the recipe on ShopRite.com, I'm making a half recipe so that I can fit it in my little individual blender. But if you want to make a fuller batch and then freeze some, by all means, you just might need a little bit bigger of a blender. Okay, and now I have my half a cup of cottage cheese. And you could use a flavored cottage cheese if you want to add that. But one of the nice things about this recipe is it's a little bit savory, a little bit more of a blank canvas so that you can decorate the pancakes how you want. And the base is just really high in protein and a nice way to work. Okay, so now we're gonna add 2 eggs. So really between the eggs, between our cottage cheese, we really do just have so many awesome protein sources going in there. And the power doesn't end there. We have a really nice ingredient that is going to lend even more nutrient density to this. And that is a half a tablespoon of hemp seed. And you could do ground flaxseed too, really whatever you have on hand. Like I said, this is a nice recipe because it is versatile. And then I am going to do a half a teaspoon of baking powder, which that is important because that is what's going to leaven up these pancakes. All right, and then I am going to tighten this and blend it up. And just like that, you have your pancake batter. I like to give it one flip just to make sure any of those oats that are at the bottom we get. Perfect. Alrighty. And the nice thing too with using it this way is you could just pour it in pretty easily. And one thing for me, anytime I make pancakes, I'm always going to use a little bit of butter to make sure I get that nice crispness on the bottom. You can absolutely use a cooking spray if you want to keep the calories lower, but a little bit of butter, I think in pancakes goes a long way. So we want it hot and bubbling. And then we're gonna put a nice dollop in. And then, I don't know if I call this a hack, but for me, I like to use a fish spatula when I am flipping pancakes. Even if you never make fish, having one of these for pancakes is really, really good because it's nice and long, so it makes it a lot easier. If you're like me, when you go to flip the pancake, you get a little impatient, it starts to flop on a regular spatula. So I would make sure you get one of these if you're a big pancake maker. It makes it really easy. So we're waiting for the sides of the pancake to bubble. And once we get those bubbles, we know we're in a good place to flip. So I have a stack that's already made, and I talked already about all of the things we put into this pancake to really up the nutrient density. We have the fiber coming from our oats, we have the cottage cheese giving us protein, we have the eggs giving us protein. So it makes for a really nice blank canvas where, unlike maybe a regular pancake recipe that you do have a lot of refined flours in, and then you put something like maple syrup or honey on, it's kind of adding sugar on top of sugar. But in the case of our delicious protein pancakes, we are really bulking up the nutrient density, and you can make them really sing with your toppings without having to be too concerned about the sugar content of the toppings. So I'm gonna put half a banana on here. And this way you could use the toppings to kind of make it different flavors. Or if you want, you could absolutely put different flavors into it depending on what your kids like or what you as adults like. Because let me tell you, these are a great breakfast for adults as well. So then you just drizzle it with some honey or maple syrup and you are good to go. So let's see if we can get this pancake flip to finish it off. Okay, we have some bubbling edges. So I just usually like to shake it. And see, when we start to see the side flipping, it's okay. We don't need it to be perfect. That was pretty good. So see, that fish spatula makes it really easy, and you have from that butter a nice golden brown edge. And that's why I like to just do that little bit of butter. It goes a long way, but like I said, you can absolutely use cooking spray, whatever works for you. So cottage cheese saving the day, giving us some great protein so that we have a powerful start to our day to keep us full all day long when we're headed to school. Meal prepping dinner is pretty common, but meal prepping breakfast is something that you should get on top of. And with this casserole, it is the perfect balance of you have delicious breakfast sausage, tons of veggies, the carbohydrate of your choice, and eggs. So it's all in one, and you're going to make it ahead of time, and you could either cook it and have it cut up for breakfast, or you could do a breakfast for dinner, which this is also perfect for. So what I have right now are some peppers and onions that are sauteing in a pan. For convenience, I love using these peppers and onions so that you don't have to necessarily chop up the peppers and onions yourself. Why not, especially for something where you're gonna be mixing it all together and cooking it anyway? This is the perfect time to use that shortcut, get yourself some frozen veggies, and have this for your eggs. I love peppers and onions in eggs, and especially in this casserole. And then you can take whatever chicken sausage, turkey sausage, regular breakfast sausage of your choice, and you're going to add that in there as well. So I went with the breakfast flavor. I have an apple maple breakfast one, and I am just gonna put that right in there and get some color on it. And then I'm also gonna add some mushrooms. Now, what I like about any casserole recipe, and really most egg recipes like omelets, is you really can use whatever veggies you want. So it's a great opportunity to put a lot of them in there. And I think sometimes it can be tricky to get produce, especially vegetables, into breakfast if you're not having eggs. And since mornings are rushed, sauteing up a make your own omelet station, it's probably not in the cards for busy school mornings, but that is okay, because that is why we have this delightful little mixture and why we're gonna make this ahead of time. All right, so we're just gonna let those cook a little bit more. Really what we're doing is softening them up and just looking to get a little bit of color onto the sausage and to the veggies. So in the meantime, I'm going to crack my eggs. So we are going to do 6 regular eggs and 2 egg whites. And I would say that this is pretty forgiving too in terms of the ratio here, depending on how many servings you want to make. So the way I like to think of it is probably because you have some extra protein in here and you're gonna have some carbohydrate in here. We're thinking about 1 egg per serving of this dish. So whether or not you want this to serve 8, which is what we're doing with the 6 and 2 egg whites, you can mix and match based on the size of the casserole dish, based on how much you wanna make. Totally up to you. I am actually really happy right now. I am not good at cracking eggs, and so far, I didn't get a single shell in there, so we are winning today. I also learned recently that cracking them on the side of the bowl is more likely to get some shells in there versus just hitting it on the table. I'm usually the one who can still prove that wrong, but we seem to be doing pretty good today. All right, got this egg whites in there. And our last one, whoops, there we go. Alrighty, and there are egg substitutes you can use if you want to cut down on the prep of this part. You can use the carton eggs where it's already the liquid eggs or egg whites that you can find in the dairy section. You can also utilize, if you want to, a egg substitute if you are looking to make this dairy-free, because those egg substitutes, they do bake up very, very well. Okay. All right, so our veggies look good. I'm just gonna put our eggs to the side for just a moment and bring over our casserole dish here. And because these veggies have the oil spray on them and they're gonna be our bottom layer, you definitely could spray this. You could also put parchment paper on it, but I'm gonna rely on our veggies to be the layer that is going to keep everything from sticking. All right, so we've got our layer of veggies. Then I'm gonna take 2 bagels. You could take really whatever type of bread you want. These are some vegan everything bagels. You can also use gluten-free bread. You can use a whole grain or high fiber. You could use a keto. It's really completely up to you. It's just, I like doing the everything in particular because it adds a really nice flavor. Okay, so we're just chopping those up roughly because it's gonna go on top of our vegetables, and then we're gonna pour our egg and our milk over it. And this is actually something, especially, you could just peel the bread. I just cut it, but you can peel it into pieces, make it more rustic. And then if you're using the vegetables that are pre-cut, this is something that your kids can help you with, which is really nice to get them involved. Breakfast is so important to get them used to starting the day. I know as adults, I talk to a lot of people that the busier you get in the morning, the more you're kind of forgetting how important breakfast can be. People say, oh, I'm not that hungry. I don't need it. I just need my coffee. But then wonder why they are so hungry later on in the day. So think about that. And this is certainly something that you can make for yourself as well. Maybe you have one casserole that's for the kids. Maybe you have one that's for the adults in the family. Alrighty, so now we're just going to pour our eggs and our milk over. There we go. And there we go. And then lastly, I like to put the cheese on the top last because that way when it goes in the oven, it's going to crisp up. This goes in the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes at 350 degrees. And then if you want to, you could broil it for about 2 minutes just to crisp up the cheese on top. You can also, if you want to, cover it up and put it in the freezer at this stage. And then you can bake it off if you want to do this casserole as a breakfast for dinner, which I cannot stress how easy it is to do that, to say nothing for how much nutrients you're getting by going that route. So don't forget breakfast for dinner as an option. And then here is what it's going to look like. You have all of those crispy brown edges from the bread. Everything has come together. And like I said, serve this as a dinner, or you can very easily cut it up into slices, put it back in the freezer, and you have got a breakfast that is good to go with veggies, protein from your eggs, cheese, nice flavoring, and your carbohydrates. So you'll be fueled all day long. It's great when you can find a recipe that sounds delicious, but sometimes if you need to make certain substitutions, it's helpful for someone to lead the way. So I am making these French breakfast puffs, which on site may not look like something that could be diabetic friendly or keto friendly, but I'm gonna show you how to take some substitutes and very easily with one-to-one swaps, make it something for a low-carb lifestyle. So these French breakfast puffs are a take on a French toast, but it's more mobile like a muffin. So what we are starting with, if you look at the recipe on our recipe shop, it says 2/3 a cup of shortening, but we are going to use coconut oil instead, which I use many, many times to substitute for shortening in recipes, especially if I do a ganache or want to make a shell. It works really, really well, and it's a great ingredient for if you are participating in a keto lifestyle and if you want some of those medium chain triglyceride fats. Then I'm using a cup of a sugar substitute, which is 1-to-1, most of the ones that you can find in our baking aisle. And then we're gonna add 2 eggs. And these you make like a cake. So we are doing our sugar egg mixture, then we're gonna do our dry ingredient mixture, and when we add it, we're going to alternate it between milk and the dry ingredients. So these end up very, very delicious and cakey, which is great. But already with those swaps, most of what you'll find when you take a look in your baking aisle is that the things they make nowadays for swaps are 1-to-1, which makes it very easy to look at a recipe that you like. And if you want to make it work for whatever lifestyle that you are choosing to lead with your food, very easy to do. So you could see this is very, very creamy, dreamy from that coconut oil. So it got the job done. All right, we're gonna just put that aside for a second and use our mixing bowl now for our dry ingredients. So I have a keto wheat flour. that is a 1-to-1 substitute. Now, if you want to make these gluten-free, this is not a gluten-free flour, so just use the gluten-free flour of your choice. I'm not doing a very good job with measuring. Let's switch hands. There we go. Okay. And 3. And sometimes you can use an almond flour, which is a higher protein option that is also more conducive to a low-carb lifestyle while also being gluten-free. So lots of different options that you can use. All right, and then we are going to do 3 teaspoons of baking powder, which is going to help to really make these fluffy, and a half a teaspoon of salt. All right. And we're just gonna mix that together. It's okay that we're using the wet whisk because everything is gonna get mixed together anyway. So when you are doing a cake mixture, you want to always start and end with your dry ingredients. So since this is gonna use 2 cups of milk, we're gonna do a cup of our flour mixture, cup of milk, cup of flour, cup of milk, cup of flour. And you just want to make sure everything stays incorporated. So I like to use my 1 cup again. And we're just gonna go back and forth. You really want everything to mix in. You don't want to go overboard in how heavy you mix, nice and gentle as everything comes together. Now this is gonna look like it's really, really dry, but then we're gonna add half of our milk. Changes it right up. And you can do this in a mixer if you have it, but it's not totally necessary. You just need to be a little patient, little movements with the whisk, and it's all gonna come together exactly how you want it. Great. Go. And this is a really fun recipe to do with your kids. Most baking is this one, not too many ingredients for it to get too messy. But mess can be fun. All right. Like I said, we just want to make sure that we're mixing everything together, but we don't want to go overboard. The rest of our milk in there. And if you are doing more of a keto recipe compared to a more low carb, then you can use a regular full fat milk if you so choose. I'm using our organic reduced fat one, totally up to you. Okay, and our final dry. All right, so after you've mixed that together, you're going to pour it into a muffin tin and bake it for about 20 to 25 minutes. And you come out with these lovely, lovely breakfast puffs. Now, the pièce de résistance, if you will, is I'm gonna take a little bit of milk. And this is where we kind of make them French toast-like. I'm just gonna take a little bit. And we're going to take one of our muffins, do a little dip in there, and then do a little dip in a blend of cinnamon and our sugar substitute. And we're gonna roll it around. And you have a delicious breakfast puff. So like I said, we use all different substitutes. So this was a great way to take a sweet treat, but make it good for someone who's maybe watching their carbohydrate intake or participating in a keto lifestyle. Any recipe that you find on our recipe shop, we have always got you covered with different options for substitutes. And you could always shoot us an email if you have any questions. Like and follow for more.